In a far-off galaxy, on the planet Glias 581G, there lived a girl named Zara. Zara was not human, she was an alien of the NYX species. The Nyxes were known for their shimmering green skin and bright blue eyes. They had the ability to see in the dark and move silently through the forests of their home. But there was one thing: they lacked clean water. For years, their planet had suffered from drought, and finding fresh water had become a constant battle. Zara, brave and adventurous, often ventured beyond the borders of her village to seek water. One day, she heard about a hidden stream that ran through the mountains. The rumors suggested the water was pure and could save her village from thirst. Determined to bring back water, she set off on her journey. As she traveled, the sky turned a vivid purple. Flowers bloomed around her, but Zara barely noticed. Instead, her mind focused on the stream. After several hours of walking, she finally reached the spot where the stream flowed. To her delight, the water sparkled under the light of two suns. Zara filled her container, glancing around to ensure no one was watching. She knew if the village leaders caught her, she would get into trouble. They believed stealing water from the mountains was dangerous. Just as she was about to leave, voices emerged from the trees. A group of tall, muscular men approached, clad in rough clothing that hinted at their power. They were known as guardian warriors, and they fiercely protected the water sources. Zara's heart raced. She tried to hide behind a rock, but it was too late. "Hey! You there!" one of the warriors shouted, pointing toward her. Zara froze, knowing she couldn't run. Seconds later, they were upon her, surrounding her with their fierce gazes. "What do you have there?" asked the leader, a man named Corin. Zara held her container tightly. She could sense the danger in the air. "It's just water," she said quietly, wishing her voice didn't shake. "Just water?" Corin laughed harshly. "You steal from our streams. For that, you will pay." The guardians advanced toward her, and Zara could feel panic rising inside her. Before Zara knew it, Corin lunged and grabbed her by the arm. "You shouldn't take what isn't yours," he yelled as he pulled her closer. Zara winced at the grip, it felt so tight, her arm could break. But at that moment, a loud noise echoed through the forest. A figure appeared at the edge of the clearing. It was a human, a young man named Jake, who had traveled from Earth for adventure. He often visited alien worlds to learn about different cultures. Jake had been nearby, exploring when he saw the commotion. "Hey! Let her go!" Jake shouted, running toward them. The warriors turned, a look of surprise on their faces. "Who are you?" Corin growled, still holding Zara's arm. "I'm Jake. I'm not here to fight, but this is wrong," he said, stepping between Zara and Corin. "She was just trying to help her village. You can't take her arm for stealing water." Corin released Zara slightly, confused by the human's boldness. His warriors whispered among themselves, unsure of what to do next. Zara seized the chance to pull her arm away, rubbing it lightly. She looked at Jake with wide eyes, grateful but also frightened. "Stay out of this, human," another warrior warned. "You don't understand our laws." "I understand enough," Jake replied firmly. "Water is life for all creatures. You can't punish her for trying to save her people." Corin hesitated. He felt the truth in Jake's words but did not want to seem weak in front of his warriors. "You are brave, human, but bravery can lead to foolishness," he snarled. "Or it can lead to understanding," Jake countered, his voice steady. "Look, I'm not your enemy. If you let her go, we can help each other." Zara watched this strange interaction, captivated. She had never seen a human before. His confidence was unlike anyone she had ever known. "What do you propose?" Corin asked, still wary. "I can help you find new water sources," Jake replied. There are ways to collect humidity, ways to create something from nothing. Let her go, and we can make a deal. The warriors murmured among themselves, unsure. Zara felt a glimmer of hope. They looked back at Corin, who was still thinking. He weighed his options, looking at Zara, then back to Jake. Do it. Someone in the group urged. She's just a girl. Finally, Corin sighed and stepped back. We'll let her go this time, but if you speak lies, I will find you, human. Jake nodded, relieved. Thank you. Zara stepped away from them, holding her container close. Thank you, she whispered to Jake, her eyes bright with gratitude. Jake smiled back. You were brave too. We can work together. As the Guardians retreated, Zara and Jake walked back toward the village. The connection between them felt strong, two beings from different worlds united by a common need. They spoke about the challenges they faced and how they could help the NYX people. Days turned into weeks, and Zara and Jake became inseparable friends. Together, they discovered new ways to collect water, using the dew in the mornings and creating simple devices from the tools Jake had brought. Their friendship grew, as did the hope of the NYX people. The village soon had fresh water again. The villagers celebrated, thankful for Zara's bravery and Jake's wisdom. They sang songs and danced in the moonlight, joy echoing through the valley. And so, Zara and Jake not only saved the NYX people but also formed a bond that would last a lifetime. Together, they learned that even in the vast universe, friendship could bridge the distance between different worlds. The crimson sun dipped below the jagged peaks of Xylos, casting long shadows across the dusty plains. Illyra, a young Xylar with skin like polished jade and eyes like molten gold, crept towards the shimmering oasis. Her stomach growled, she hadn't eaten properly in 3 days. Her people, the Xylar, were nomadic, but a recent sandstorm had scattered their herds, leaving them with little. Water was more precious than gold. The oasis was guarded. 2 hulking Kadar, with their chitinous armor and 6 clawed limbs, patrolled the perimeter. They were known for their brutal efficiency. Illyra knew stealing water was a death sentence, but thirst gnawed at her, a relentless hunger. She needed water, even if it meant risking everything. She waited until the Kadar turned their backs, their multifaceted eyes scanning the horizon. With the agility of a desert cat, Illyra darted towards a small, trickling stream feeding the oasis. She cupped her hands, desperate for the cool relief. But she wasn't fast enough. One of the Kadar spun around, its segmented body moving with unsettling speed. Its mandibles clicked, a sound that sent a shiver down Illyra's spine. The other Kadar joined, their 6 limbs converging on her. Intruder. One Kadar rasped, its voice like grinding stones. Illyra froze, the water in her hands splashing onto the parched earth. She knew their punishment. For stealing water, they would sever her arm, a brutal warning to others. Fear constricted her throat. She closed her eyes, bracing for the pain. She felt a sharp tug at her arm, a searing agony that threatened to overwhelm her. But it wasn't the Kadar. A booming voice cut through the night, "Hold it right there." A figure, tall and imposing, stepped out of the shadows. It was a human, clad in worn but functional armor, a blaster pistol held loosely in his hand. His face, weathered and lined, was etched with determination. His name was Captain Rex, and he was a seasoned explorer, stranded on Xylos after his ship had crashed. The Kadar hesitated, their multifaceted eyes focusing on the human. They were wary. Humans were unpredictable, powerful, and known to be ferocious when provoked. Rex didn't flinch. His stance was confident, radiating an aura of quiet strength. "She's just a child," Rex said, his voice firm but not aggressive. He spoke in the common galactic tongue, a language the Kadar understood. "She's dying of thirst. You can't possibly think this is just?" The lead Kadar hissed, its mandibles clicking angrily. She broke the law. She will pay the price. You'll pay the price if you harm her, Rex replied, his grip tightening on his blaster. He wasn't bluffing. He knew he was outnumbered, but he wouldn't let them hurt the Xylar girl. He'd fought worse odds than this. A tense silence hung in the air, broken only by the chirping of desert insects. The two Kadar exchanged glances, weighing their options. Humans were dangerous, but disobeying the Kadar hierarchy was even more so. Suddenly, a high-pitched whine pierced the night. A small, sleek ship descended from the sky, landing near the oasis. From it emerged several more humans, equally armed and determined, Rex's backup team, who had finally located his emergency beacon. The Kadar, outnumbered and outgunned, backed down. They grudgingly released Illyra, who collapsed onto the sand, weak and trembling. Rex knelt beside her, offering her a canteen of water. Illyra drank thirstily, her eyes filling with gratitude. She couldn't speak, her throat was too dry, but her gaze expressed everything. The humans, with their superior technology and firepower, had established a tenuous peace with the Xylar and the Kadar. They worked to find water sources and provided much-needed aid to both species. The Kadar, though initially resistant, found themselves respecting Rex's fairness and the humans' technology. They even aided in providing food and medicine to the humans. A shared understanding of survival, forged in the harsh desert environment, began to blossom. Illyra's arm was saved, but more than that, a bridge was built between three different species, a testament to Rex's bravery and the unexpected bonds that could form even in the most hostile of environments. As the days turned into weeks, Illyra learned more about the humans, their compassion, and their capacity for kindness. She learned that even though they were different, they were not enemies. She learned about cooperation, a lesson that would shape her life and the future of her people. The crimson sun continued its daily journey across the Xylos sky, casting long shadows, but they weren't shadows of fear anymore. They were shadows of hope, born from an act of courage, a shared thirst quenched not only by water, but by the unlikely alliance between a human and an alien girl. The oasis, once a symbol of danger, became a symbol of hope and a newfound understanding. Even the Kadar, once symbols of ruthless enforcement, began to see a new way, a way of coexistence, paved by an act of defiance and a shared sip of water. In the distant future, Earth had changed a lot. Cities were vast and filled with glittering buildings, while deserts spread out like yellow blankets. Water had become very rare. People fought over it, and the government kept strict controls. In this environment, a girl named Myra, who was not from Earth, lived on the edges of the big city. Myra was an alien from a small planet called Zoroth, where water flowed freely. Myra had green skin, big blue eyes, and silver hair that sparkled in the sun. She was curious about Earth and its people. However, she struggled to find a place where she belonged. Zoroth had many lovely things, but it was tough to be far from home. Myra missed her planet's rivers and the happy sounds of her friends. One hot afternoon, Myra wandered into the bustling marketplace of Earth. People sold strange goods, and colorful food filled the air with mouth-watering smells. But all she could think about was how thirsty she was. Water cost too much, and she had no money. As she walked, she noticed a small shop with a cooler full of bottled water. Her throat felt dry. The cool bottles inside sparkled like jewels. Myra looked around nervously. No one was paying attention to her. She took a deep breath and made a quick decision. She would take just one bottle. Surely, no one would know, and she could drink it in peace. She reached for a bottle and quickly tucked it under her arm. Just as she turned to leave, a loud voice called out, "Hey, you! Stop!" It was a tall man with a stern face. He was the shopkeeper. Myra's heart raced. She ran as fast as she could, dodging people in the crowded street. She felt light on her feet, but the man was fast too. Myra. She heard a voice shout from behind, but she couldn't stop to see who it was. She raced down an alleyway, her mind screaming for a way to escape. Suddenly, she spotted a small door leading to a basement. Without thinking, she ducked inside and closed the door behind her. Inside, it was dark and musty. Myra could hear her heart pounding in her chest. She hugged the bottle tightly, worried that it would be taken from her. She wanted to drink it right away, but she knew she had to be careful. As she caught her breath, she heard footsteps above her. Where did she go? The shopkeeper yelled. Myra pressed her back against the wall, her heart racing louder. She heard a second voice, softer and more thoughtful. Let's check down there. Then, silence fell. Myra's mind raced. She didn't want to get caught. Just as she started to consider her next move, the door creaked open, and a human boy stepped inside. He looked around, his brown hair falling over his eyes. Are you okay? He asked, noticing her scared expression. Myra hesitated. I'm fine, she stammered, but her voice was barely a whisper. The boy, named Leo, stepped closer and said, You don't look fine. What happened? Finally, Myra shared her story. She told him about how desperate she was for water, how she was thirsty, and how she had stolen a bottle. Leo listened carefully, nodding in understanding. I saw you running. The shopkeeper is really angry, Leo said. He's known for getting rough with thieves. You could be in serious trouble. Myra felt a chill run down her spine. I didn't mean to steal it. I just wanted to survive, she said softly, tears welling in her eyes. Leo's expression softened. Okay, listen. I'll help you. You need to get out of here before he finds you. He looked around the small room, then pointed to a narrow window. We can climb out. Myra looked uncertain. What if he sees me? She asked. Leo smiled. I'll create a distraction. Trust me. Before she could respond, he dashed toward the door, opened it, and shouted, Hey, you! Come look at this. He then ran out of the basement and down the alley. Myra's heart raced again. She had to move fast. She climbed to the window and squeezed through, falling into a stack of old crates below. It hurt a little, but she barely noticed. She looked around for Leo and saw him waving from further down the alley, beckoning her to follow. Myra took off, sprinting towards him. She could hear the angry shouts of the shopkeeper behind her. Get back here! He yelled fiercely. Leo led her through a series of twisting alleyways, and Myra tried to keep up. They ran until they reached a large open area filled with strange machines. Panting, they stopped behind a big dumpster. That was close, Leo said, grinning. You're pretty fast. But what will happen now? Myra worried, looking at her bottle of stolen water. Don't worry about the water, Leo said. We'll get you something more. There's a community center not far from here. They help anyone in need. Myra felt relief wash over her. Thank you, she said, realizing just how kind he was being. I thought I would lose my arm for stealing that water. No one should lose their arm for being thirsty, Leo replied with a serious expression. Everyone deserves a chance. Together, they made their way to the community center. Inside, they found people smiling and offering food and water. Myra was amazed. She felt a sense of hope for the first time since arriving on Earth. As she drank from a cup filled with cool, fresh water, she turned to Leo. You saved me, she said softly, grateful for his help. Just doing what anyone would do, he replied, but Myra knew he was special. She smiled back, understanding that they were now friends and that she had found a little piece of home. In a world filled with struggle, they had discovered kindness. Her adventure on Earth was just beginning, and with Leo by her side, she felt ready to face whatever came next. The rusty pipes groaned, a mournful song in the echoing corridor of the abandoned space station. Kira, her skin the color of amethyst, crept along the shadowed wall, her large, dark eyes wide with a mixture of fear and desperation. Her small hand, clutching a dented metal canteen, trembled. She needed water. The air recycled on her section of the station was thin, dusty, and tasted of metal. Kira was an alien, a refugee from Xylos, a planet ravaged by a solar flare. She was alone, separated from her family during the chaotic evacuation. Now, she lived a precarious existence in the forgotten corners of the station, scavenging for scraps and dodging the patrols of the harsh human security forces. She reached a junction, the faint hum of a water recycling unit audible nearby. It was a risk. Security cameras were common around such vital installations, and the penalties for unauthorized access were brutal. But Kira's throat burned, and her body ached with thirst. Carefully, she bypassed a flickering security camera, its lens clouded with dust. She found a small access panel, its lock rusted but still functional. With nimble fingers, she used a small, salvage tool to pick the lock. It clicked open with a soft whisper. Inside, the recycling unit pulsed with faint light, a symphony of whirring and gurgling. Pipes snaked like metallic veins, carrying the precious liquid. Kira reached for a valve, her fingers brushing against the cool metal. Relief washed over her, she was almost there. As she turned the valve, a harsh voice boomed from behind, "Freeze. Don't move." Kira froze, her heart pounding like a drum against her ribs. She turned slowly, her eyes meeting those of a human security officer, a towering figure clad in gray combat armor. His face, hardened by years of service, showed no mercy. He held a pulse rifle, its barrel trained squarely on her. "You're trespassing," the officer said, his voice gravelly. "And stealing water. That's a capital offense." Kira could only whimper, her amethyst skin paling. She knew the punishment. On this forsaken station, stealing water was often punished by the amputation of a limb, a brutal example to deter others. She looked at her arm, her lifeline, her only means of survival. The officer approached, his boots echoing on the metallic floor. He grabbed her arm, his grip tight. Kira cried out, not just from the pain, but from the fear of losing her limb. She imagined the cold, metallic blade of the station's makeshift surgical tools. Suddenly, another voice cut through the tense silence. "Wait." A woman, her face etched with worry, stepped into view. She was dressed in the uniform of a station medic, her identification badge gleaming under the dim lights. "Officer Jax, what's happening here?" she asked, her voice firm yet gentle. Officer Jax hesitated, glancing between the terrified alien and the concerned medic. "She was stealing water, Dr. Eris," he said, his voice softening slightly. "Capital offense." Dr. Eris approached Kira, her eyes scanning the alien girl's frail body. She spoke softly in a language Kira didn't understand, but the tone was reassuring. Then, she addressed Officer Jax. "Officer, I understand the rules, but look at her. She's a child. Dehydrated, malnourished. She needs medical attention, not punishment." Officer Jax remained unconvinced. "The rules are clear, Dr. Eris. Stealing water is." Dr. Eris cut him off. "I'm ordering you to release her. I'll take responsibility for her. We can find a more humane solution than amputation, I'm sure." A long silence followed. Officer Jax's gaze flickered between Kira and Dr. Eris. He seemed torn, the weight of his duty and compassion warring within him. Finally, he relented. "Very well, Doctor. But this is your responsibility now. He released Kira's arm, his grip loosening. Kira, weak and trembling, slumped against the wall. Dr. Eris helped her to her feet. The medic spoke again in soothing tones, offering Kira some nutrient paste and water from her own canteen. The journey to the medical bay was long and slow, Kira's small hand clasped in Dr. Eris's firm grip. She looked up at the woman, her dark eyes filled with a mixture of gratitude and awe. This unexpected act of kindness was a beacon of hope in the dark recesses of the forgotten space station. Days later, Kira was recovering in a small, clean room, the medical bay's recycled air much cleaner than the dusty corridors. She learned Dr. Eris had petitioned for her case, arguing that Kira should be considered a refugee, not a criminal. The station's governing council, swayed by Dr. Eris's compassion, allowed Kira to stay at the station in exchange for light work in the medical bay, clearing a path for a safer, more hopeful life. She was still a refugee, but now she felt a little less alone, her heart warmed by the unexpected kindness of a human. She often looked back at the day she almost lost her arm, forever grateful for the woman who saw her as a person, not just a criminal. Her canteen, a symbol of her desperation, sat on her bedside table, a reminder of her near escape and her newfound hope. In a small town on the edge of a vast desert, a bright sun hung in the sky, casting warm light on the dry ground. It was a place where people struggled for water, often having to walk long distances to fill their jugs. The townsfolk had learned to share and to be careful with every drop, for they all knew what it meant to be thirsty. One day, a strange ship descended from the clouds, landing silently on the outskirts of the town. Its metal glimmered under the sun, casting curious shadows. From it emerged a girl unlike anyone had ever seen. She had skin that glowed slightly green, large violet eyes, and her hair flowed down her back like a river of stars. Her name was Lyra, and she was from a planet far away. Lyra had traveled to Earth on a mission. Her planet, Nicara, was running out of water, and she had been sent to seek help. But as soon as she stepped outside her ship, she realized how scarce water was on Earth, too. The dry ground parched her throat, and her stomach rumbled from hunger. Lyra had little time to find the water she needed. The townsfolk, unaware of her origins, watched her carefully as she wandered towards the town center. Lyra saw a tall, shimmering water tower and felt a wave of hope. She approached it with excitement, her heart racing. But just as she was about to reach for the handle, she was spotted by a group of townspeople. "Hey! Stop right there!" shouted a man with a weathered face and a stern voice. He stepped forward, pointing a finger at Lyra. "Who are you?" another woman asked, her eyes narrowing suspiciously. Lyra hesitated, realizing she needed to explain, but the thirst drove her to act. She grabbed the handle of the water valve and twisted it. Water began to spill out, glistening in the sunlight, and Lyra felt her mouth water. "Don't!" the man yelled, rushing toward her. He reached for Lyra's arm, but in her panic, she pulled away too quickly. Lyra's foot slipped, and she fell, scraping her elbow on the ground. Within seconds, the group of townspeople surrounded her, their faces a mixture of surprise and anger. They believed she was trying to steal their precious water. The man grabbed her wrist tighter, and Lyra's eyes widened in fear. Before Lyra could explain, a boy emerged from the crowd. His name was Sam, and he had always been different. Curious about the universe beyond, Sam had read countless books about aliens and adventures. He saw Lyra's struggle and stepped forward. "Wait. She's not just a thief," he cried, his voice clear and strong. "We don't know her story." The crowd turned their faces to Sam, unsure of what to do. Sam approached Lyra, his eyes filled with kindness. "Are you okay?" he asked gently. Lyra nodded slowly but winced as the grip on her wrist tightened. "Let her go," Sam urged the man. She might be from a faraway place and just needs help. The man hesitated, glancing back at the other townsfolk. Some looked worried, others still looked angry. They had lost water before to poachers and were protective of their resources. "But what if she is a thief?" shouted the woman. "We should give her a chance to explain," Sam replied. He turned to Lyra. "Please, tell us why you came here." With the crowd watching, Lyra took a deep breath. "I'm Lyra from Nicara. Our planet is dying. We were sent to find water because we have none. I didn't mean to steal. I just needed it." Her voice trembled, revealing her fear and desperation. The crowd murmured among themselves. Some softened, realizing that Lyra's situation was not so different from their own. Sam glanced between Lyra and the townsfolk, hoping they could find common ground. The man still holding her wrist finally loosened his grip, but he looked conflicted. "Why should we trust you?" he asked. "Because," Lyra replied, "I won't take more than I need. I only want to survive, just like you." The truth in her words hung in the air. Sam watched as the crowd began to think. Little by little, the tension faded. Finally, the man sighed, lowering his head. "Let's not forget. We're all struggling out here." Slowly, he released Lyra's wrist completely. Lyra rubbed her arm, relieved. "Thank you," she whispered. Sam stepped closer to Lyra. "How about we help each other?" he suggested. "You can come with me and we will see if we can find a way to help your planet." Lyra smiled, her heart warming at his kindness. "Really? That would mean so much." The small group exchanged glances, a new plan forming among them. They decided to take Lyra to the old well on the outskirts of town, where they had previously discovered a hidden spring. It was a place many had forgotten. As they walked together, Sam led the way, telling Lyra about Earth and its struggles with water. They shared stories about their homes, finding similarities amid differences. Lyra talked about her planet's lush forests and sparkling rivers, while Sam described his town's challenges with drought. When they reached the hidden spring, Lyra's eyes widened in amazement. Water bubbled up from the ground, clear and fresh. This could help," she exclaimed, kneeling beside the spring. The townsfolk gathered around, casting their doubts aside, sharing in her joy. "Maybe there's enough for both our worlds," Sam said hopefully. As they filled their containers, Lyra filled with gratitude. They had been enemies, but now they were allies. With the sun beginning to set, Lyra determined she would return to Nicara with not just water, but with a message of hope. Together, they would learn how to work alongside each other, finding ways to share resources without fear. And just like that, the alien girl who nearly lost her arm for water was saved by the human boy who dared to believe in friendship. As they stood together at the hidden spring, the boundaries of their worlds began to dissolve, promising a future where cooperation could thrive even in the driest of lands. In the heart of the desert, hope had sparked, showing that understanding could bloom anywhere, even among the stars. The rusty, desert planet of Xylos was harsh. Its twin suns beat down mercilessly, baking the cracked earth to a fiery crust. Life here was a constant struggle for survival, especially for Xylar, a young alien girl with skin like polished jade and eyes the color of amethyst. Her people, the Xylan, were small, agile creatures, adapted to the planet's harsh conditions. But even their resilience was tested by the relentless thirst. Xylar's village was dwindling. Their underground water source, already meager, had almost dried up. Days bled into weeks, each sunrise bringing a renewed battle against dehydration. Desperate, Xylar ventured beyond the village's protective walls, hoping to find a hidden spring. She walked for hours, the scorching sun a relentless enemy. She stumbled upon a large, metallic structure half buried in the sand, its surface etched with strange symbols. Curiosity overriding caution, She cautiously approached it. It was a derelict spaceship, its hull scarred and battered. Inside, a glimmer caught her eye. It was a pipeline, thick and metallic, leading to a pool of sparkling, clear water. It was a treasure beyond measure. Xyler drank deeply, the cool water a sweet relief. As she quenched her thirst, a loud alarm blared. Red lights flickered to life within the ship. Xyler, startled, turned to see a robotic arm, large and menacing, extending from the ship's interior. It moved with alarming speed, its metallic fingers closing around her arm. Terror seized her. She struggled, her small body unable to match the robot's strength. The grip tightened, the metallic fingers digging into her flesh. She screamed, a high-pitched wail lost in the vastness of the desert. Meanwhile, Captain Rex, a seasoned human explorer, was surveying the planet from his orbiting ship. His mission was to study Xylo's unique geological formations. He noticed unusual energy readings emanating from the surface. Intrigued, he dispatched a small drone to investigate. The drone's camera relayed images of the derelict ship and, to Rex's astonishment, a small alien girl trapped in the robotic arm's grasp. He recognized the Xylan from his database, a species known for their intelligence and resilience, facing extinction due to water scarcity. Rex didn't hesitate. He knew the ship's automated defense systems were ancient and unpredictable. He launched a small escape pod, equipped with a powerful electromagnetic pulse emitter, towards the derelict vessel. He landed nearby and quickly assessed the situation. The robot arm, still gripping Xyler, was struggling with its own internal systems, its movements becoming jerky and erratic. The alarm continued to blare. Rex could see Xyler's arm was already bleeding and severely damaged. He had to act fast. He activated the EMP emitter, aiming it carefully at the robot's control unit. A powerful surge of energy coursed through the air, momentarily disabling the robot. The metallic fingers released their hold on Xyler's arm. She tumbled to the ground, gasping for breath, her arm twisted at an unnatural angle. Xyler looked up at Rex, her eyes wide with fear and astonishment. He approached slowly, his movements cautious and reassuring. He spoke in a soft tone, using a universal translator. "Are you all right?" Xyler could only nod, tears streaming down her face. Rex examined her arm. It was severely injured, the risk of losing it very high. He knew he had to get her to medical assistance quickly. He carefully helped Xyler into the escape pod. He applied makeshift bandages to her arm, doing his best to stop the bleeding. He activated the pod's communication system, sending a distress signal to his main vessel, detailing the situation and requesting immediate medical assistance. As the escape pod ascended, Rex looked back at the derelict ship, its red lights still flickering. He thought of the Xylan people and their struggle for survival. He knew this was more than just a rescue mission. It was a chance to help a dying civilization, a chance to make a difference in the vast, unforgiving expanse of space. Back on the orbiting vessel, a medical team was waiting. They immediately attended to Xyler's injured arm. Hours later, after a series of complex procedures, the doctors declared her out of danger. Her arm was saved, though it would require extensive rehabilitation. News of Rex's bravery and Xyler's miraculous survival spread through the human and Xylan communities. Rex became a hero, a symbol of cross-species cooperation. His intervention wasn't just about saving a life, it was about forging a bridge between two vastly different civilizations, a bridge built on compassion and a shared commitment to survival. Xyler, once just a desperate girl clinging to life, became a symbol of hope for her people. Her story became a testament to the resilience of life, and the unexpected kindness found in the vastness of space. The harsh landscape of Xylos, once a symbol of despair, now held a glimmer of hope, thanks to the actions of a courageous human and a desperate alien girl. The rescue served as a turning point, laying the foundation for a future where human and Xylan work together, pooling their resources and knowledge to ensure both civilizations could thrive. On the planet of Zarath, water was a precious resource. The planet was mostly arid, with vast deserts and hard rock mountains. People traveled great distances to find this life-giving liquid. The Zorathians had strict rules about taking water. They guarded it fiercely, believing that it belonged to their community and no one else. One bright morning, a young Zorathian girl named Illyra woke up with a rumbling stomach and dry throat. She watched her mother struggle to make breakfast with their dwindling water supply. They lived on the outskirts of the bustling city of Trivun. Day by day, the water became harder to find and even harder to keep. Illyra, curious and adventurous, often explored the outskirts of Trivun after her chores. One day, she overheard a group of older Zorathians talking about a secret water cache hidden near the Forbidden Mountains. Rumor had it that the water was pure and abundant. Illyra's eyes sparkled with excitement. She decided she would find it. As she slipped away from home, her heart raced with anticipation. She trekked through rocky terrain, keeping her eyes peeled for any signs of the hidden stash. After hours of searching, she finally found it, a cave half covered by twisted vines. Illyra could hardly believe her luck. She squeezed through the entrance and gasped as she saw the shining blue water inside, sparkling like jewels. Without thinking twice, she filled her small container. Just as she was about to leave, a loud noise startled her. A group of Zorathian guards stormed into the cave, their faces fierce and angry. They had been watching her. "What do you think you're doing?" one of them shouted, pointing at her. Panicking, Illyra dropped her container. Water spilled everywhere. She turned to flee, but strong hands grabbed her arm and pulled her back. The guards were ready to punish her for stealing the precious water. Illyra trembled in fear, knowing she could be in serious trouble. One of the guards, a tall one with a stern look, raised his weapon. "You will pay for this theft," he growled. Just then, a human named Jack, who was visiting Zarath from Earth, entered the cave. He had heard the commotion while hiking nearby. Seeing Illyra in danger, he rushed over. "Stop!" Jack shouted, stepping between the guards and Illyra. "She didn't mean any harm." The guards paused, surprised by this unfamiliar human. Jack quickly explained. "I understand water is precious here. But this girl is just a child. She was only trying to help her family." One of the guards sneered. "You know nothing of our laws, human. She broke them. We must teach her a lesson." Jack knew they wouldn't listen easily, but he stared them down. "What if I give you something valuable in return? I could offer something from Earth." The guards looked confused. They had heard of Earth but had never met anyone from there. Intrigued, they lowered their weapons slightly. "What could you possibly offer that would matter to us?" another guard asked. Jack reached into his backpack and pulled out a small, shiny gadget. It was a water purifier, capable of turning dirty water into clean drinking water. "This can transform water, making it safe and clean. You don't need to hoard water, you could purify any source you find." The guards murmured among themselves. They knew they could use this technology but were still hesitant. Suddenly, another guard, who had been silent, spoke up. "This could be beneficial. But we need to ensure our community is safe." "What if you trick us?" Jack understood their concerns. "I promise I have no ill intent." "Let me prove it." "Let Illyra go, and I will help you with your water issues." The tall guard narrowed his eyes. "Very well. But if you make a fool of us, you will suffer the same fate as her." With a nod of agreement, the guards released Illyra's arm. She quickly stepped back, rubbing her sore shoulder. Jack glanced at her and smiled, relieved that she was safe for now. "Thank you," Illyra whispered, her voice shaky. Jack turned to the guards. "Let's work together. I can show you how to use the purifier, and in return, I ask that you don't punish her." The guards reluctantly agreed. Jack spent the next few hours demonstrating how to use the purifier. He showed them how to find unclean water sources and turn them into safe drinking water. The Zorathians watched closely, their faces reflecting a mix of doubt and wonder. As the sun began to set, they filled their bottles with clean water. The guards were impressed, the purifier worked marvelously. They finally realized that with this new technology, they could provide clean water without needing to hoard it or punish children for trying to survive. Illyra felt a mix of relief and gratitude. She could not believe she almost lost her arm for a simple act of desperation. With Jack's help, she had not only saved herself but also brought hope to her community. Once everything was settled, the guards thanked Jack and Illyra for their help. They agreed to share the product with their village and promised to protect their water sources wisely. They would also educate their people about cooperation and kindness. As Jack prepared to leave Zoroth, he looked at Illyra one last time. "Remember, you did nothing wrong, Illyra. Sometimes we just need to find a way to help ourselves and others." With a big smile, Illyra thanked Jack again and waved as he disappeared into the distance. She felt inspired and hopeful that, together, they could change their world. No longer would they have to live in fear of water shortages. They could work together to find ways to create abundance for everyone. Illyra returned to her home that evening, a newfound determination in her heart. She promised herself that she would always fight for what was right. She knew, no matter how tough things got, there was always a way to find hope and help others, just as Jack had helped her. The crimson sun dipped below the jagged peaks of Xylos, casting long shadows across the dusty plains. Kira, a young Xylosian with skin like polished jade and eyes like molten gold, huddled behind a crumbling rock formation. Her three-fingered hand clutched a small, cracked vial, her only possession, and now, nearly empty. She was desperately thirsty. For days, she had been scavenging scraps, avoiding the patrols of the towering, metal-clad guards who patrolled the human settlements. Water was precious here, rationed strictly. Xylosian physiology, adapted to their harsh planet, needed less water than humans, but Kira was still parched. Driven by thirst, she'd risked everything to sneak into a human water reclamation facility, a towering structure of gleaming metal and humming machinery. She'd managed to siphon off a small amount of purified water, but her clumsy attempt had triggered an alarm. A harsh, mechanical voice echoed across the facility, "Intruder detected. Sector 7. Initiate containment protocol." Two heavily armed guards, their faces obscured by visors, materialized from the shadows. They were tall and imposing, their movements precise and efficient. Kira froze, the small vial trembling in her hand. She knew stealing water was a serious offense. Xylosians were considered a lesser species by the humans, and the punishment for theft was severe. One guard raised a weapon, a device that hummed with energy. Kira's heart pounded in her chest. She knew what that weapon did, a precise, debilitating energy blast, often used to disable machinery, but capable of severing limbs with ease. "Stop!" the guard shouted in a heavily accented Xylosian tongue. "You are trespassing. Put your hands up." Kira's eyes darted around, desperately seeking an escape. But the guards had her cornered. She clutched the vial, her mind racing. She could run, but they would catch her. And the punishment. She had heard stories. Suddenly, a voice cut through the tension. "Hold it!" A figure emerged from the shadows, silhouetted against the fiery sunset. It was a human, a woman with short, cropped brown hair and piercing blue eyes. She was tall, even taller than the guards, and held what looked like a small, handheld device in her hand. But it wasn't a weapon. The guards paused, turning their attention to the newcomer. "What do you think you're doing?" one of the guards barked at the human woman. The woman calmly stepped forward. I'm here to assess the situation. This is a level 3 violation, correct? She addressed the guards professionally, ignoring Kira. The guards exchanged glances. Yes, ma'am. The woman approached Kira slowly. Kira, paralyzed with fear, watched as the woman knelt beside her. The woman's expression was curious, not hostile. She spoke to Kira in fluent Xylos-Xian, a gentle voice that calmed Kira's racing heart. You're thirsty, aren't you? She asked. Kira could only nod, tears welling in her eyes. The woman smiled faintly. I understand. Water is precious here. But stealing isn't the answer. This is a serious offense. But. She pointed the handheld device at the vial in Kira's hand. This is hardly a significant amount. It would barely quench your thirst. She turned to the guards. I'm going to take her to the medical bay. She needs hydration. Let's treat this as a minor infraction. A warning. She won't do this again. The guards hesitated, then nodded. They clearly respected the woman's authority. The woman, whose name Kira later learned was Anya, led Kira to the medical bay. Anya treated Kira's dehydration, offering her a small cup of clean, cool water. It was the most delicious thing Kira had ever tasted. Anya explained the importance of respecting human rules and the severe penalties for theft, but she did so kindly, without condescension. She gave Kira some food and a small amount of water to take with her. Before Kira left, Anya gave her something else, a small, silver token. This will allow you to access the water reclamation facility's emergency water dispenser once a week. Use it wisely. As Kira walked away, Anya watched her go. She knew Kira would never forget her kindness. The crimson sun had fully set now, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Kira looked back at the facility, a single tear tracing a path down her jade cheek. She had almost lost her arm, but in the face of human cruelty, she had found surprising human kindness. She had almost lost hope, but instead found a reason to keep living, a reason to keep fighting for survival, a reason to believe that even in the harshest environments, compassion can bloom. In the year 2145, Earth was a very different place. Cities were tall and shiny, with flying cars buzzing in the sky. The world behind was now divided. Some parts were lush and green, while others suffered from drought and pollution. People were trying to survive in this harsh environment, and so were the aliens who had started to visit Earth. One sunny day, in a small city called New Hope, an alien girl named Lila quietly entered a marketplace. She was from a distant planet called Zerta, where water was more precious than gold. Zerta had seen many wars over water, and Lila had escaped to find a safe place to live. Her green skin shimmered under the bright sunlight, and her purple eyes looked around nervously. Lila's stomach rumbled loudly as she walked through the marketplace filled with humans and their strange food. She couldn't understand their language, but her heart understood the pictures of fresh vegetables and fruits. What she needed most was water. She saw a sparkling fountain in the middle of the plaza and walked towards it, her mouth watering at the thought of cool water. As she approached the fountain, Lila noticed a group of humans standing nearby, laughing and chatting. They had bottles filled with fresh water. Each time they took a sip, Lila felt an ache in her heart. She knew she couldn't afford to buy any. In her desperation, she reached out her hand and scooped some water from the fountain. It felt refreshing, and she couldn't help but smile. Just as she was about to take a long drink, a loud voice shouted, "Hey! What are you doing?" Lila turned quickly to see a tall human man running towards her. His face was angry, and he pointed a finger at her. Panic surged in her chest. She dropped the water and backed away, but then she felt a painful grip on her arm. The man had caught her. "You think you can steal from us?" he yelled. Other people in the marketplace turned to watch. Lila felt scared and alone. She tried to pull away, but his grip only tightened. Suddenly, a soft voice cut through the tension. "Wait. Let her go." It was a girl around Lila's age, standing behind the man. She had curly brown hair and big, kind eyes. "She's just thirsty." The tall man turned, his eyes narrowing. "This alien tried to steal water. She needs to be taught a lesson," he argued. But the girl stepped closer, her voice trembling with determination. "Please, she didn't mean any harm. Look at her. She looks scared," the girl pressed. She glanced at Lila and saw the fear in her eyes, the tears that threatened to fall. The tall man hesitated. He looked back at Lila, noticing her alien features more closely. Her green skin stood out among the humans, and her delicate form shivered. She looked so vulnerable. Finally, he released her arm, though not without a final glare. Lila stumbled back, rubbing her arm where he had gripped her. "Thank you," she whispered to the girl. "My name is Clara," the girl said with a warm smile. "What's yours?" "Lila," she replied softly, still finding it hard to believe she was no longer in danger. Clara glanced back at the man who was now walking away, still grumbling. "People here can be rough," she said. "Especially when it comes to aliens. But don't worry, I won't let them hurt you." Lila felt a spark of warmth in her heart. She had never met a human who cared before. "Why did you help me?" she asked, curiosity shining in her eyes. "Because I know what it's like to be different," Clara replied. "My family adopted a Zertan when I was little. His name is Zax. He taught me that we're all the same inside, no matter where we come from." As they spoke, Clara led Lila away from the marketplace to a small park filled with trees. It felt calm and peaceful there. Lila sat on a bench, watching the leaves dance in the wind. Clara sat beside her and opened her backpack, pulling out a water bottle. "Here, you can have this," she said, handing it to Lila. Lila looked at the bottle as if it were a treasure. "Are you sure?" she asked, feeling hesitant. "Of course. I can always get more," Clara said cheerfully. "Besides, you look like you need it." Lila accepted the bottle, her fingers trembling as she unscrewed the cap. She took a sip, feeling the cool liquid flow down her throat. It tasted like heaven. As they rested, Clara asked, "So, what are you doing here, Lila? Are you staying long?" Lila hesitated. "I was looking for a place to call home. My planet. It isn't safe anymore. I just want to survive." Clara nodded, understanding her pain. "You can stay here for now. We can find you help. There are places and people who will take care of you." Just then, Clara noticed a commotion at the marketplace. The tall man had returned with a few of his friends, and they were pointing in Lila's direction. Clara's eyes widened. "They're coming back. We should hide." Quickly, Clara grabbed Lila's hand, and they slipped behind a large tree. From there, they could see the group searching for Lila, angry and shouting. "I can't go back. They'll hurt me," Lila said, fear creeping into her voice. Clara thought fast. "Follow me," she whispered. They crept through the park, trying to stay quiet. Clara led them toward a narrow alley, where they could hide until the danger passed. The sound of the angry voices faded behind them. Breathing hard, Clara turned to Lila. "You're safe now. Just for a little while." Lila looked into Clara's eyes and felt gratitude swell in her heart. "Thank you for saving me, Clara. I won't forget this." Clara smiled. "Good friends stick together. We'll figure this out." And as they sat in the shadow of the alley, Lila realized that she had found something even greater than water. She had found a friend, someone who accepted her, despite all the differences. Together, they planned to face whatever dangers might come next, united in hope and courage. The rusty pipe hissed, spitting a thin stream of water. Xylo, her skin the color of amethyst, cupped her hands, desperate. She was small, even for a Xyloxian, her 6 fingers barely managing to catch the precious liquid. Days she'd gone without water, scavenging scraps in the desolate, dusty canyons of Xylos. Her people, once masters of their planet, were now refugees, clinging to life in the ruins of their once great civilization. A tremor ran through the ground. A deep, guttural growl echoed from the canyon's mouth. 2 hulking figures, their armor gleaming under the harsh sun, emerged. They were Kryll, notorious for their brutality and their iron fist rule over Xylos. Xylo froze, her heart hammering against her ribs. She knew the Kryll's rules: stealing water was punishable by death, or worse. A Kryll warrior spotted her. His cruel, black eyes narrowed. "Water thief!" he bellowed, his voice echoing through the canyon. His companion laughed, a harsh, grating sound. Panic seized Xylo. She tried to run, but her legs felt like lead. The Kryll advanced, their weapons glinting menacingly. One of them raised a long, wicked-looking blade. Xylo closed her eyes, bracing for the inevitable. The blade flashed down. Xylo screamed, but it wasn't the expected pain that hit her. Instead, it was a sharp, searing heat. She opened her eyes to see a blur of motion, and then a sharp thud. The Kryll warrior lay on the ground, his weapon clattering beside him. A figure stood over him, silhouetted against the sun. He was tall, his skin pale, his hair a fiery orange. He wore strange clothing, a loose-fitting garment of a light gray material. This was no Xyloxian, nor a Kryll. This was different. "Leave her alone," the stranger said, his voice calm but firm. It was deep and resonated with an authority that silenced the other Kryll warrior. He stood, frozen in place, his eyes wide. The stranger approached Xylo. He knelt beside her, examining her arm. The Kryll's blade had grazed her, cutting deeply into her flesh. It would need treatment. Xylo stared at him, her fear slowly giving way to curiosity. She had never seen anyone like him before. His clothing was unfamiliar, his skin was a color she'd only seen in old, faded murals of a forgotten era. "Are you a human?" she whispered, the word sounding strange even to her own ears. Human. She'd only heard the word in legends. Stories of a powerful race that had vanished centuries ago. The stranger smiled, a gentle, reassuring smile that calmed her trembling. "Yes," he replied, his voice soft. "My name is Kale." "And you are?" "Xylo," she replied, her voice barely audible. Kale carefully cleaned the wound on Xylo's arm with a strange, white cloth he pulled from a pouch. The cloth felt cool and soothing against her burning skin. He then applied a paste from a small tin, mumbling something under his breath. It smelled faintly of herbs and something else, something strangely metallic. "You shouldn't be stealing water," Kale said gently. "It's dangerous. The Kryll are cruel." Xylo nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. She explained her plight, her voice choked with emotion. She spoke of the dwindling water supplies, the constant struggle for survival, and the desperation that led her to steal. Kale listened patiently, his expression filled with empathy. He then produced a small, sleek device from another pouch. It hummed softly as he held it over Xylo's arm. A warm sensation spread through the wound, easing the pain and accelerating the healing. Xylo watched, amazed, as the cut began to close. The searing pain faded, replaced by a dull throb. It was like magic. When he was done, Kale rose to his full height. He looked at the remaining Kryll warrior, who was still paralyzed by fear. "Get out of here," Kale commanded, his voice hardening. And don't ever bother her again. The KRYLL warrior scrambled away, disappearing into the shadows of the canyon. Kale turned back to Xylo. He offered her a small canteen filled with sparkling, clear water. "Drink," he said. Xylo drank deeply, savoring the cool water. It was the best water she had ever tasted. Kale stayed with Xylo for the rest of the day. He shared his rations, explaining the history of his people, the humans, and the reason for their long absence from Xylos. He told her about advanced technology, interstellar travel, and the vastness of the universe. He spoke of a time when humans and Xylosians had been allies, a time before the KRYLL had conquered their world. As the sun began to set, Kale knew he had to leave. He couldn't stay forever. But he couldn't leave Xylo to fend for herself. "I'll be back," he promised. "I'll find a way to help your people." Xylo watched him go, a renewed hope flickering in her amethyst eyes. The humans' arrival was a sign, a small glimmer of hope in the ruins of their civilization. She knew she had to survive, not just for herself, but for the future of her people, a future that now, thanks to a single human, seemed slightly less bleak. She clutched the empty canteen, a testament to an unlikely friendship, and a promise of a better tomorrow. In the distant future, Earth was not the only place where life thrived. Many planets in different galaxies were home to creatures beyond imagination. Among these was a small, dry planet known as Kyra, where the sun burned brightly, and water was as rare as a jewel. This planet was known for its deep canyons and sparkling stone formations, but also for its extreme heat and endless thirst. On Cairo lived a young girl named Lyra. Lyra was not human, she was an alien with blue skin and eyes that sparkled like stars. Her long hair floated like wisps of clouds. Lyra had a curious spirit and a heart full of dreams. She wanted more than just her life on Cairo. She longed for adventure and the taste of something new. Most importantly, she wanted water, which was a luxury hard to find. Every day, Lyra and her family faced the challenge of finding water. They had a small garden that needed every drop, and they often went days without a proper drink. One hot day, while wandering away from her home, Lyra overheard some traders talking about a nearby human settlement. They spoke of an abandoned space station filled with precious items, including water. The thought of that water made Lyra's heart race. She quietly followed the traders when they left, her mind filled with plans. She knew stealing was wrong, but desperation drove her. She wanted to save her family. When the traders vanished into the dusty path, Lyra found her way to the old space station. Inside, the air was cool, but it was dark and eerie. Lyra crept through the deserted hallways, her eyes shining with wonder and fear. She stumbled upon a vast room filled with strange machines and glowing containers. At the far end, she saw what she had come for, a large tank of shimmering water. It gleamed like magic under the flickering lights, calling to her. Biting her lip, she moved closer, her head buzzing with excitement. Just as she reached the tank, an alarm blared loudly. Lyra jumped, her heart pounding in her chest. Red lights flashed everywhere, and she froze. She quickly looked around, wishing for a way to escape. But before she could think, security drones appeared, whirring and hovering in the air. They scanned the area for intruders. Panicking, Lyra grabbed the water tank's handle and pulled. It was heavy, but her determination gave her strength. She struck the tank with all her might, water began to slosh out, gleaming in the air. Just as she filled her small container, a drone spotted her. It zoomed in her direction. "Stop!" a robotic voice echoed. Lyra ran, clutching the container tightly. The drone followed, faster than she could run. She dashed through the dark hallways, the water spilling behind her as she tried to escape. But the drone was relentless. It flew closer and closer until it aimed its glowing arm right at her. Suddenly, just before the drone could take an action, A loud shout interrupted everything. A human man, wearing a strange suit, leaped in front of Lyra. He was tall and broad-shouldered, and his face hid behind a helmet. "Get down!" he shouted. Lyra fell to the ground, startled and confused. The man turned to the drone, his own weapon in hand. He fired, and the drone whirred and exploded in a shower of sparks. "Are you okay?" The man knelt next to her, pulling off his helmet. Lyra could see his kind blue eyes. "Why yes," she stammered, her heart racing from both fear and relief. "But I came for water. I just wanted—" "I understand," he interrupted gently. "But stealing is dangerous. There are rules in human settlements. Do you want to get caught? I thought I would die of thirst." Lyra cried, tears filling her eyes. "I just wanted to save my family." The man softened, understanding the pain in her voice. "What's your name?" he asked. "Lyra," she replied, still trembling. "Lyra, my name is Jonah. Let's find a way to get that water safely." Jonah stood, glancing around. "We need to move quickly before more security arrives." Together, they hurried back to the water tank, still filled with the shimmering liquid. Jonah looked around, his eyes scanning for danger. "We can't just take it, it's too risky. I'll help you get some water, but we have to do it smart." Lyra nodded, her heart swelling with gratitude. She watched as Jonah pulled out a small device from his pocket. He pressed a button, causing the water tank to shrink down to a portable size, perfect for carrying. "Take this," he said, handing her the newly transformed tank. "You can fill it more easily." "Will it fit?" Lyra asked, looking nervously at the tank. "It will. Let's fill it and get out of here," Jonah reassured her. Lyra filled her tank as quickly as she could, her hands shaking. Outside, the alarms continued to blare, but she felt less alone with Jonah by her side. As they prepared to leave, Jonah suddenly paused. "Lyra, we might have more unwanted guests." He motioned for her to follow him down a side corridor. Lyra took a deep breath and followed closely. Together they moved stealthily, Jonah leading the way while Lyra clung tightly to her tank of water. They crept past rooms filled with strange equipment and flickering screens until they reached the exit. Suddenly, the door opened, and more drones appeared. Jonah pushed Lyra behind him, standing firm. "Run!" he shouted. Lyra dashed past him, her heart pounding again. Jonah fought off the drones, trying to clear her path. She glanced back, terrified for him, but he waved her on. "Go. I'll be fine." Lyra sprinted out into the open, her feet pounding the ground. Outside, the sun was shining bright, but all she could think of was Jonah. She turned, debating whether to go back for him. Just then, she saw him barreling out of the station, running towards her. With adrenaline coursing through her veins, Lyra reached for him, and they both dashed away into the dry landscape. Behind them, the space station buzzed with alarms, but they didn't look back. They ran until they reached a secluded grove of tall rocks. Collapsing against the cool stone, Lyra gasped for breath. Jonah sat beside her, his eyes full of warmth. "You did it, Lyra. You escaped and you got the water," he said, smiling wide. Lyra laughed, tears mixing with her joy. "We did it together, Jonah. Thank you for saving me." In that moment, she realized that sometimes, the thirst for adventure could lead to unexpected friendships. And she would remember this day forever, not just for the water, but for the brave human who stood by her side. From that day forward, Lyra and Jonah formed a bond as strong as any water. With courage and friendship, they dreamed of building a better future together, for both their worlds. The rusty pipes groaned, a mournful song in the harsh desert wind. Kira, her skin the color of amethyst twilight, pressed her small hand against the cracked metal. She was desperate. Her throat burned, her lips cracked. 3 days. 3 days since the last trickle of water had passed her lips. Kira was in Xylos, from a planet far beyond human reach, a planet where water was a precious, shimmering jewel. She'd crash-landed on this desolate world, her escape pod broken, her comms fried. Now, she was alone, haunted by the harsh sun and the even harsher landscape. She'd found this abandoned mining outpost, a skeletal finger pointing accusingly at the unforgiving sky. There, deep within its decaying heart, a pipe still pulsed faintly with water, a relic of a forgotten age. But the pipe belonged to the harsh, unforgiving inhabitants of this planet, the humans. She carefully pried open a valve, her fingers trembling. A thin stream of water trickled out, a lifeline in this wasteland. She cupped her hands, drinking deeply, the coolness a balm on her parched throat. Suddenly, a harsh voice shattered the silence. "Hey!" Kira froze, her heart hammering against her ribs. A tall, powerfully built man stood at the entrance of the outpost, his face grim, a laser pistol holstered at his hip. His eyes, sharp and assessing, fixed on her. Beside him, a smaller, younger man with nervous eyes, watched intently. "What do you think you're doing?" The tall man barked, his voice echoing in the cavernous space. He was Jax, a veteran miner, hardened by years of toiling under the relentless sun. His partner, a young man named Ben, was visibly more apprehensive. Kira tried to speak, her throat too dry for words. She pointed at her throat, then at the water, trying to convey her desperation. Jax didn't understand. He saw a small alien, unauthorized, tampering with their precious water supply. He'd heard the whispers, the legends of strange creatures beyond the stars. He didn't trust anything that wasn't human. "You're trespassing," Jax growled, advancing slowly. "That's company property." Kira backed away, fear gripping her. Jax raised his pistol, his hand steady. "I should call security, but I think a little discipline is in order." He aimed for her arm, a swift, decisive movement. It was a warning shot, intended to scare her. But he was more experienced than he realized. His shot was too quick, too precise, and the laser beam singed her arm. A piercing scream escaped Kira's lips. She collapsed to the ground, clutching her burning arm. The intense heat seared her flesh, the pain almost unbearable. Blood welled up around the wound. Ben, his initial apprehension overridden by horror, stumbled forward. "Jax! Stop!" he cried, his voice cracking. "You're going to kill her." Jax hesitated, a flicker of doubt crossing his hardened features. He'd intended to merely injure, not maim. He looked down at the bleeding alien, her violet skin contrasting starkly with the crimson stain spreading across her arm. He looked at the young man beside him. Ben's face was a mask of distress, a stark contrast to his earlier nervousness. The sight of Kira's pain and Ben's distress startled him. This was a being, in pain. A being he was about to cause irreparable harm to. Ben pushed past Jax, rushing to Kira's side. He had basic medical training, something he never thought he would use. He quickly assessed the wound. It was bad, but not fatal. He managed to find a small first aid kit hidden in a corner of the outpost, a relic from a time when people actually cared about basic safety. While Ben worked tirelessly, expertly applying what few bandages he had and tending to Kira's wounds, Jax stared in conflicted silence. He had been about to cause serious injury, if not death. Ben managed to stem the bleeding with the limited resources he had at his disposal. His hands trembled only slightly, his concentration absolute. The sight of the alien girl, small and vulnerable, in pain, broke through Jax's hard exterior. He'd seen much suffering during his time in the mines, but this felt different. This was innocent. As Ben finished, he turned to Jax, his face grim. "We need to get her to a doctor," he said, his voice low and firm. Jax finally nodded, his usual harshness replaced by a quiet resolve. He knew that helping this wounded alien was not only the right thing to do, but also the only chance that this desperate being had to survive. Slowly, carefully, they helped Kira to her feet. She leaned heavily on Ben, her eyes closed, exhaustion etched on her face. As they walked towards the exit, under the harsh desert sun, Jax couldn't help but look back at the rusty pipe, its lifeline a stark reminder of how close Kira had come to losing her arm, and perhaps much more, due to a moment of desperate thirst. The journey to the nearest human settlement was long and arduous. But, under the merciless sun, as they made their way, a new understanding was born. They were both different, but they were all, in the end, creatures trying to survive. A silent treaty had been formed between the veteran miner, the apprehensive young man and the injured alien girl. The desert held many harsh realities, but on this day, it also held the seed of a unique, unexpected friendship. A friendship forged in thirst, pain, and shared vulnerability.